All right, so job interviews, right? They can be pretty nerve-wracking. You spend all this time researching the company, getting ready for those typical questions, and then they throw something at you that you just don't expect.
Oh, tell me about it.
Yeah.
It's like they're trying to catch you off guard.
Exactly. But what if there was like a way to walk into any interview and answer any question with confidence? Like for any role, you know?
Okay, that would be a game changer for sure.
That's what we're going to be diving into today.
All right, I'm all ears.
We're going to be looking at this guide called Answer Interview Questions Like an AI Bot.
Whoa!
It's
Uh,
by a career coach named Sebastian Klassen. And it's not about actually, becoming a robot or anything.
yeah, I was just thinking that.
It's more about like adopting this strategic framework. He calls it the Decem-Stelly model.
Decem-Stelly model. Okay, that sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, think about it this way. Like, traditional interview prep is usually all about, trying to memorize answers or fitting your experience into these preset categories. But the Decem-Stelly model, it kind of like flips that whole script.
So instead of you feeling like you're scrambling to keep up, you're actually the one who's kind of guiding the conversation?
Yeah, exactly. And you're in control.
Yeah,
And you can show them what you want them to see, your strengths.
that's smart.
And one thing that Klassen points out in the book is that the interviewer, like, they have two main objectives. Like, they're trying to find someone who fits the job role, obviously,
Right.
but also the company culture.
Yeah, I can see that. I've seen people who look great on paper, but they just, I don't know, they don't mesh with the company's vibe.
Yeah. And it never works out well, does it?
Yep, not usually. So how does this Decem-Stelly model help with that?
Well, that's where the decim part comes in, right? That's 10 in
Mhm.
Latin. The Decem-Stelly model, it basically breaks down the whole interview process into 10 key
Oh,
areas.
interesting.
Like 10 filters, that help you analyze any question that they might throw at you.
Hmm. That's fascinating. So instead of trying to force fit your experience into these generic answers, you're using these keys to, I guess, kind of unlock a response that's more, personal and nuanced.
Yeah. And one that shows the interviewer what they're actually looking for, both in terms of your skills and your, cultural fit.
Gotcha. So what are a few of those keys? Like, what are some that really stood out to you?
Well, let's take personal values, for example. This one is all about figuring out, like, what's really important to you
Hmm.
and how those values match up with the company's culture.
Right. So it's not just like, spitting out a list of generic values.
Hmm.
It's about showing that you've actually like thought about how those values
Hmm.
connect with their specific culture.
Yeah. And how your values actually make you a good fit for them. So, like,
Hmm.
let's say the company really emphasizes teamwork and collaboration. Through that personal values lens, you could talk about a time when you went out of your way to help a colleague.
Hmm. That's a really good example.
It shows them that you live those values.
Exactly. You're not just talking the talk. You're actually walking the walk.
Now, let's look at another key. How about problem solving? This one is like super crucial for showing that you can think critically.
Right. I mean, that's important for pretty much any job.
Right. So, like, how would you use that key to deal with a question like, tell me about a time you failed?
I hate that question.
Right. Everyone does. But with this problem solving key, you can actually turn that question into like a chance to shine.
Okay, so instead of dwelling on the failure itself, you're focusing on how you learned from it.
Exactly. So you talk about the steps you took, the solutions you tried, what you learned to make sure it doesn't happen again.
That makes so much sense. It shows you're not afraid of challenges and you're able to overcome them.
Yeah. And that's the whole point of this model. It's not about having like these memorized answers.
It's about having that mental framework that lets you tackle any question they give you.
Yes. With confidence.
This is starting to sound like that secret weapon you mentioned earlier.
Right. It's a powerful tool. But 10 keys, that's a lot to remember.
Yeah, I was thinking that. So is it like one key per question, or do you kind of weave them all together?
Well, that's a great question. From what I'm getting from the guide, it seems like it's more about an integrated approach.
Okay, so it's less rigid, more about using them as guides to create I guess, a well-rounded answer.
Yeah, exactly. And here's where it gets even more interesting, right?
Okay, I'm listening.
Klassen, he introduces these things called Decem-Stelly knowledge libraries and indexes.
Knowledge libraries. What are those? Like actual libraries?
No, no, not like, buildings with books. They're more like collections of information
Okay.
tailored to different industries and job roles.
Oh, okay. So you're tapping into this bigger pool of knowledge that's specific to your field.
Yeah.
That could be really useful.
Imagine like having access to this whole database of, you know, industry trends and best practices.
It's like having a cheat sheet, but it's ethical.
Right. And it helps you really show off your knowledge.
Hmm. Okay, now I'm really interested to see how these libraries work. But before we get into that, what about those golden keys you were talking about before? What are those all about?
Oh, those are good. Think of them like the finishing touch, you know?
The cherry on top?
Yeah, exactly. They make your answers even better, you know? Take your answers from good to great.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Give me an example. How can they, like, level up my interview game?
Okay, so one of them is personal brand alignment.
Personal brand alignment.
It's all about making sure your answers not only answer the question, but also, they reinforce the image you want to project.
Oh, I see.
You're telling a story, basically. You're not just, giving facts.
Right, you're presenting yourself in a way that connects with the company's values. Like, you're on the same wavelength.
Exactly. And it's not just about saying the right things, it's about showing them why you're the perfect fit. And these golden keys help you do that.
Okay, you've got me hooked. I'm ready to dive deeper into these golden keys and figure out how to, like, really craft those awesome, memorable answers that'll impress the interviewer.
Sounds like a plan.
But now I'm really curious about these golden keys. What makes them so special?
Okay, so imagine, you've used the 10 keys to structure your answer, right?
Right.
You've even looked into the knowledge libraries for a little extra, industry insight.
Okay.
The golden keys, they're like adding that perfect final touch.
Oh, I get it. Like that little extra something that makes your answer really stand out.
Exactly. They make your answer really shine.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's not so much about the content of your answer, it's more about the delivery, right? Like the impression you make on the interviewer.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the golden keys that I really liked is future projection.
Future projection. Okay.
And this is where you kind of go beyond just answering the question itself.
Mm.
You actually show the interviewer that you're thinking ahead, like you're already thinking about how you could help the company in the future.
Oh, I see. So you're showing them that you're not just interested in the job right now, but you're thinking long term. You're thinking about how you can grow with the company.
Exactly. Like you're not just looking for a job, you're looking for a place where you can really, make a difference. And future projection helps you like express that vision.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So let's say I'm prepping for an interview using this whole model.
Yeah.
How would I actually, like, work these golden keys into my preparation?
Okay, well, first you got to make sure you understand those 10 keys, right? Like how to use them to analyze the questions.
Right.
Then you would dig into those knowledge libraries, the ones that are relevant to, the industry and the specific role you're going for.
Okay, so it's kind of like a multi-layered approach, right?
Yeah.
You start with those 10 keys as your foundation.
Yeah.
And then you add in the knowledge about the industry. And then you sprinkle in those golden keys for that extra, I don't know, pizzazz.
Yeah, like creating a really, really good meal. You start with your main ingredients, then you add those spices, and then right at the end, you add that little garnish, that little something special to make it perfect.
I like that analogy.
Yeah. So instead of like a delicious meal, you're serving up an amazing interview performance.
Right. Okay, so let's go back to that question we talked about before, the tell me about a time you failed one.
Ugh, yeah.
How would you use future projection to turn that question, into something more positive?
Okay, so after you explain the situation and how you handled the problem, right, you could say something like, this experience really taught me a lot about specific skill. And now I'm much more proactive about specific action to prevent those kinds of issues in the future.
Right.
And in this role, I'm really excited to use those lessons to contribute to the team's success by specific contribution related to the company's goals.
Wow, that's amazing. You took a question about failure and turned it into a chance to show off how much you've grown.
Yeah. And how you're proactive.
Yeah.
And how you're committed to the company's success. And it all comes back to understanding what the interviewer is looking for, right? They want to see that you can learn from your mistakes.
Yeah.
That you're adaptable.
That you're invested in their success.
Exactly. And the Decem-Stelli model and those golden keys, they give you that structure to communicate all of that really effectively.
Okay, this is awesome. But let's be real, not everyone has the time to really dive deep into a big guide like this. What would you say to someone who feels overwhelmed by all this?
Well, that's a good point. And honestly, I think this is where...
Yeah, that makes sense. Even just understanding those 10 keys, it can make a big difference.
Yeah. It's about having that system, that roadmap for your interview prep.
Totally. And you don't have to, like, master every single key or memorize all the info in those knowledge libraries.
No, definitely not. Just focus on the areas that are important for your